up next is Elizabeth. Now, Elizabeth is particularly interesting for me because she's passionate about helping these businesses. I love this this bio here, inspired by hackathons, something that I spend a lot of time in myself. So it's really important to see people coming from that inspirational kind of platform that we've been on. Lovely to have you join us. So everybody, I'm just going to hand you straight over to Elizabeth. Her bio's on the screen. Hopefully you can see that now. Elizabeth, if you want to tell us a bit more about yourself and share your screen and take over.
Hi, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Akinfiieva, and today I'm going to tell you about the Office 365 capabilities that we can use in Power Platform. Currently, I'm a senior Power Platform developer at Logic Apps company. And at my free time, I try to teach Power Platform to non-technical professionals. As Sharon mentioned, I was inspired with these hackathons, and I also try to help local businesses here in Ukraine to have these applications that can be done really quickly, easy, using the Power Platform. And I also have people who wanted to learn Power Platform and start developing their own applications. That is why I started this like a little activity, teaching non-technical professionals to build their Power Platform applications. And I also did a couple of applications myself to local businesses. For example, an English school to my friend. So right now they are using this application, and it is really inspiring to develop more and to learn more and develop myself as a professional and help others. And I have been participating in 2 hackathons. Already it is MBA's 2020, and the last one was Power Platform School Hackathon. And tomorrow I'm going to participate in the MBA's 2021. So also time to inspire, to get new ideas and to meet other people. So today I'm going to tell you about the enhancing capabilities with Office 365 in the Power Platform. We are going to talk about out-of-the-box integration, Office 365 with Power Apps. So we will see which actions, connectors we can use right now. We are going to talk about some actions that we need to take to enhance these capabilities, because not all functionalities that we have at the user interface, not all of it we can integrate with Power Apps. So we will learn about Microsoft Graph API. Next, we will look at the types of access for this Graph API, and we will build a small custom connector in order to create this integration and use it in Power Automate or Power Apps. So right now we have the following functionality for Microsoft 365. I think you're all familiar with that. It is like booking, calendar, Delphi, Excel. We have OneDrive, OneNote, Outlook, people, like everything that we use in our daily life. We have this integration already done at some point for Power Platform. For example, we have Office 365 Users Connector. This connector can give us an access to the data, like my personal data. I think you all had this experience in Canvas applications, trying to retrieve my profile and get department, get display name and some other data. And we also have an access to get information about other people in our Azure directory. So it is Office 365 users, and here we have user profile. We can get some another user using the email, and we also can get manager of that user and also get that information personal. The next things we have for the 365 user connector, it is direct reports and search for users with some search terms. So it can be anything. It can be email, name, phone, manager, and so on. The company probably. Then one of the most popular connectors also is Office 365 Outlook, because everybody use this Outlook connector and Outlook in general. So using this out-of-the-box connector, we can get emails. So it is fetching only. We can get it with different access levels. So we can get emails, read, update them. Then we can send the message. We also can have an attachment in the message. We can delete message, create event. So everything. And then we need to talk about limitations. For example, we have a limitation when we talk about shared mailboxes. This was the reason why I started learning deeply this Microsoft Graph API, because I needed to create functionality that will get access to the shared mailboxes in Outlook. So I had to create my own custom connector, because shared mailbox is really limited functionality for the if we are talking about out-of-the-box connector. Then events and mailboxes of other accounts. So you will not be able to get access to other accounts through the out-of-the-box connector. You have to figure out how you will manage this task. Then groups and some limitations we have with tasks. Also Microsoft 365 application. And then this access point. What I mentioned previously is scope. For example, it is really relevant with the point about events and mailboxes of other accounts, because this is the scope of access that you can get. So right now we are going to start talking about Microsoft Graph. It is an open API that allows you to get access to the to all applications and data in Microsoft 365 platform. For example, here on the screen you can see some applications that we have in Microsoft 365. It can be all documents, conversations, some timelines, news, and personal data. And you have some your custom applications on the right side. And the basics of all of it is Microsoft Graph. So all of our out-of-the-box connectors, they work directly using this Microsoft Graph. And we can learn it in order to build our own tools and to create our applications using this out-of-the-box Microsoft Graph API. So we will need to create a connector. This Microsoft Graph will give us an access to all Microsoft 365 applications data. We also give us an opportunity to manage our Windows 10, and also some enterprise mobility and security, manage and create some applications. So first of all, we need to understand how Graph API works. So here we can see some examples of how it uses an access and to which applications already we have. So first of all, here we have the list of all applications that I have already mentioned. Then also this enterprise mobility and security services point, and the Windows 10 services that you can manage. And we also have this point regarding the Business Central. So starting with the registration of the application in Azure, this app registration will give us an access, the permission to use the Microsoft Graph API. So we go to Microsoft Azure and select App Registration. Here we are going to register our new application, which will be Graph API. Then for the usage of this application registration, we need to manage some setups. So first of all, we need to take into account that further for the usage of Graph API, we would need the credentials of application registration. And here I suggested we start from the authentication and configuration of the platform. So it will be our redirect URI on the right side, and on the left side we can see application client ID and directory ID. These parameters we will use in order to get access to the Graph API. The redirect URI would be global consent Azure APInet redirect. This will redirect us to the Graph API as soon as we get access, as soon as we authorize to this application. Then we need to give the API permissions. Here's going to be the magic of how you get access to the Graph API, to the applications, which access you will have. So you need to go to the API permissions and add some permission. When you click on this button, you will see the window. The first point here would be Microsoft Graph. This is the permission that we actually need. And here we have two types, delegated permissions and application permission. So the difference here is how you get access, the scope of the access. First, delegated permission is when you're trying to get an access to the, for example, Outlook of another user, but you're limited at what you can get from this, like the data which you can retrieve. The next point is the application permission. Here, when you get access without a user. So you don't need to authorize. Usually, this type of permission uses for the applications or chatbots, for example, in Telegram bots. So here you can get access to all of the data which you have been granted an access. And you will be able to create this authentication and usage of the Office 365 data. And also important things, how you create this connection is when you use on behalf of a user, you would need the authorization code. And when you use application permission, you would need client credentials. It will be later an important thing when we will create our custom connector. And here I'm giving the example of which things you can modify here. For example, if you select delegated permission, you would be able to select calendars, read share, and for example, I selected calendars read write. So I will be able to read the user shared calendars, and I will also have access to user calendars in scope of read and write their calendars, their events. For the application permissions, we have here almost the same. You can see calendars read and calendars read write. The difference here is that for the delegated permission, you select calendars read or calendars read shared. And the second one, for the application permission, you select only calendars read. The reason is simple because when you select application permission, you have full access to all users and all kind of logins, IDs of the user. For example, shared mailbox would be also this user. So here you can see that you select shared, it would be also shared calendar. And if you select calendars, you won't have access. And for the application permissions, you have access to all kinds of users. So when we grant a permission, for example, for this calendars read write shared, we can see here the attribute admin consent required. No, it means that admin do not have to confirm that you will use this permission. But if we are talking about application permission, when we don't need the user authorization, then admin should grant this permission in order to confirm that they understand why you are trying to get access to all of the data that you ask. For example, if I ask to request this calendars data, they need to understand why I'm trying to do. For example, if I'm creating a chatbot or some application that then they will grant this access. But you need to keep in mind that IT security may not like this idea because it really gives you access to all data. So here you can grant the admin consent, and you will see this green status granted for enterprise. The last point here, when you are registering your app registration for Graph API, is certificates and secret. You need to generate a new client secret, and you need to keep this value and all these values like client ID, tenant, and redirect URI in order to have further authentication. So we are ready to start using Microsoft Graph API. We can start using it from the Graph Explorer. It is a service. You can find it on the internet. It is open source, and you can authenticate on the left side, sign to the Graph Explorer with your credentials that you used in order to create the app registration. And here you will be able to test it. For example, I did a little test. I specified that I want to get my event. So here I specify the endpoint graph Microsoft.com. Then I specify that I want to get my events. And at the bottom, you can see the result that I have this list of events. We can also do this in Postman, which I prefer more because here you can create more requests and edit them as you wish, and then save this collection. And you also, using this collection, will be able to create a custom connector in Power Automate, just exporting this this project in Postman and importing it to the Power Automate. So here I am doing the same thing. I get all my events and have some response. But the interesting thing here is how I authenticate to it. So if you remember, I was mentioning the authorization code OAuth2 with authorization code grant access. This will allow me to get access to my current data, specifically to my data, not other users. So here I need to specify the token name, the grant type, which should be authorization code, the callback URL that we discussed in Azure, Portal Azure, then the authorization URL. It all standard things, and you can find it on the Microsoft documentation for the Microsoft Graph API. Then client ID, client secret, and the scope, it was default. And then you need to generate this token. So you click on this Get New Access token, and it will be updated at the top of the screen. So the authorization here, which is used, it opens directly in this application that uses this authorization. So if I create it in the Telegram bot, it will open also in the Telegram. And what I had to do is just authorize, and it didn't ask me for any grant permissions because I used this application permission. So here is what was the response. And the next thing what I tried to test also was getting access to the calendars or the events or the messages of other users. And one of the tasks was to get access to my to the calendar of my colleague. So I have created another user. I have created a lot of events in her calendar. And the next thing, in order to get this access from the calling HTTP request, I had to specify almost the same construction here, but instead of me, I had to set these points like user / and the email of this user. And then I also had to specify the grant type authorization code. And yeah, I had to change it, this authorization code, because you can see that the access is denied. So this was previously because authorization code I used in order to get access to my data. But in order to get access to somebody else's data, I need to specify client credentials. This will require me to give the approve that I'm giving an access. And I have the response here. And I also want to share with you some interesting details regarding the Outlook calendars and events. So previously I get one my event. I have only one event for the test purposes. And Emily has a lot of events, and she also created events that she shared with me. So we have one shared event. Here we can see that attendees me and Emily, and the organizer was Emily. And here is how I see the ID of the event, our share event. And here's the ID of the Emily's event. So you need to keep in mind that ID of the same calendar for me and for Emily would be different. The same with events. So I can see event and she can see event. We have the same event, but the ID that we will get, they will be different. And here I wanted to share one more time how would I get this authorization, because I had problems with that previously, and I want to help others for your first custom connector. So you would need to use authorization code for retrieving information from your calendars, your data, and you would need to use client credentials for others users' data. The next example I would like to share is regarding the shared mailboxes. So we have seen how to get access to your personal calendar and Outlook events and mailboxes. We have seen how to get access to some other user, and the third example is about getting an access to the shared mailbox events and emails. So I have created a shared mailbox. I have given myself an access to that. And actually, here's the interesting thing, that actually it works out of the box, in the out-of-the-box connectors in Power Automate. If you add this calendar in Office 365, like this Outlook 365, if you go to the web client and add a new calendar and find this shared mailbox, which you have already been added in, and add it to your calendars, and then you will be able to retrieve all the events in this shared calendar. And this actually works in out-of-the-box connector, but it doesn't work with contacts. So the shared contacts, you would get access to using these application permissions that you gave in the Azure portal while you were registering your application. So I think we are ready to create our custom connector. Here we're using host graph.microsoft.com, and we are specifying the version. The next important thing here is the security, the authentication. So when we created an authentication in the Postman, our access token, it lives only 1 hour. So this type of access, this type of authorization would not fit our custom connector. So here we have to think how to we need to find the workaround for the authorization in order to keep this access token refreshed. So here is the important thing: you should use Azure Active Directory authentication OAuth to 0, because when you specify OAuth to 0 as authentication type, it suggests you to use general authorization. But in order to keep this access working, you need to use Azure Active Directory. Then you need to specify the client ID, the client secret. The tenant ID would be the same as in which environment you are, so you don't need to specify here the tenant ID. And also the resource URL. It is also important thing that currently this resource URL will give you an access to the Graph API. So all the applications that we have in Microsoft 365. We can keep scope's default value, and the redirect URL would be predefined for you. Then I decided to create a small example where I will get shared events from a shared mailbox. So here we can get the request, create the request with get and this URL where you use again graph.microsoft.com. Then you specify users, and as a parameter you will have an email. So actually this will work not only for the shared mailbox, but for all mailboxes of all users if you have application permission. And here we can see this email parameter. Then we also can test it. So we need to create the connection and specify some test email. And here you can see that it works fine for this authorization. So I think that that's all I wanted to share. And also here are the links in order for you to start using the Graph API. The first link is the general documentation for the Graph that Microsoft provides. Then you can start exploring Graph API using this Graph Explorer that also provided by Microsoft. And the second, the last two links is about the authentication types. So when you use application permissions and when you use user permissions, here's two things that you need to know the difference between, and you can start using it. and enhance your capabilities with Office 365 in Power Automate. So thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, please ask.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That was awesome. And I think we did have a question from Bill. Is there a blog post with these directions on it? Because obviously you've gone through a process there. Is this documented anywhere for your own material?
I had an article on a LinkedIn. I can share it here in the chat. And also, I think that all of the process was, I hope it was clear and in details in this presentation, so I can also attach this presentation.
Awesome. We'll put this up on YouTube for you as well. I don't know if anybody's got any other specific questions. I know Bill also put in the link to the Graph Explorer, which you also repeated at the end there as well. So, I mean, it's always fascinating to see how this process goes together with the custom connectors, right? So just thinking about practically how you've used that so far in your working career, what are the most interesting connectors you had to make?
Related to the Office 365 or some other things? Yeah, for Office 365, I did like a huge connector, I think, with a lot of actions. It was all related to the Office 365 with Outlook. So I had we had to give client an opportunity to create this synchronization with Outlook, like fully. We had this Canvas application, and they used it really often. So I did a lot of these custom actions. But the easiest, like creating all of these actions is the easiest part. The hardest part was to figure out how the authorization works.
Yeah, that's always the way, right?
It's actually really interesting how it displays in the canvas. So you just need your own connector and use it. Like you don't need different, like 10 or 20 connectors that is provided by Microsoft, because they are all different for the task, for the Outlook, OneDrive. You can put all the, like you need 10 steps, 10 actions, and you just put it in one connector and use it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fascinating. And I love the fact you went straight after a calendar, because everybody loves to play with dates, right?
Yeah.
That's a real developer no-no, but I mean, great stuff. So, I mean, this has been a really useful session in walking through exactly how you've gone about that process. And I think it's important, I know you were highlighting earlier on there, you know, you need some support from the organization, and they need to know what you're going to need in the back end of Azure there to approve the API and those particular steps. Is that usually a roadblock or a conversation that you feel should be had at the design stage?
Yeah, it should be discussed on the design stage. And to be honest, we didn't get this application permission. We were not allowed to use this.
Yeah, so no matter what's right, you get nowhere, right?
Yeah, so
yeah,
I had to manage it using only on behalf permission.
And I mean, you've gone through that really quickly, actually. So is this something that you've included in, like, so a hackathon is only a few hours, right, of development. This the way that you've kind of put that straight through the process there. You know, this is stuff that you can develop on the fly for those kind of events as well. This is not something that, you know, you have to go away and there's a 3-month planning stage for, right?
Yeah.
So,
well,
really
yeah. I think actually it is easy. Everything can be easy when you know how it works.
Absolutely agree. Elizabeth, this was a particularly great session for me because you've come from that hackathon kind of mentality, and I absolutely love that. Mostly because I find hackathons particularly inspiring because of the short period of time you have to come up with something and be able to use all the tools, and the way that the Power Platform lends itself to that. So the best of luck with MBAS, which is coming up actually any day, isn't it?
Yeah, it will be tomorrow.
Have you got your teams ready and
I hope we are ready.
Okay, look forward to seeing you on that. That's one I'm not taking part in this year, but I will be watching. I'm part of the audience to see how you get on, and be following you on Twitter and LinkedIn to see how that's going. So best of luck with that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being a presenter for us today and for putting yourself forward. We really appreciate it. And that was a really informative and good session. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for having me.